Everything I can do, you can do better. Everything I can do, you can do too.
In honor of Bill Alexander's birthday and reaching over 100,000 subscribers on YouTube, today we celebrate the impact Bill had not only on the art world, but on our hearts. Many of us did not have the pleasure of knowing him personally, but his warm smile always made us feel so welcomed. His happiness was contagious, and his passion overflowed onto the canvas. Every time he picked up a brush, he came into our lives and taught us how to paint. He showed us true happiness and taught us that it's okay to make mistakes. He was a teacher, a friend, and a believer. And now, over 100 years later, we celebrate him.
Welcome, everyone. We're so excited to be here today. My name is Lori Anderson, and I'm just so happy to be here and to be able to share the story of Bill Alexander. I created this channel to fulfill my promise to Bill Alexander before he passed away, to keep his legacy alive and to continue his mission to teach the world to paint. You see, Bill Alexander believed, and so do I, that the world is a better place when people paint. I have a feeling you believe that too. A few weeks ago, we announced this event to our YouTube community and asked for help. We sent out a survey asking for your input, and wow, did you step up. Hundreds of people took the time to answer the lengthy survey, and what you will see today is based on what you told us that you want to know. We did our best to combine questions, and we know we won't be able to answer every question today, so look for more events to come. Please feel free to ask questions and to make comments in the chat. If you have a question for us, please put an uppercase Q in front of your question so we can easily spot it in the chat. Don Croman and Linda Way will be watching and will be passing your questions on to our producer, Gord Eisman. Periodically, he will share the question with me, and I will do my very best to answer. And hey, you know, if you're enjoying the show, give us a thumbs up. The format of the show will be a mixture of live and pre-recorded messages. Some clips come from our 3-hour interview that Bill did in 1989 with our then producer, John Hartman. This will give a reflecting perspective. Some clips will be from a documentary that KOCE did in 1982. I have a long history with Alexander Art, over 35 years. I had the privilege of working with Bill personally for 11 years before he passed away in 1997. You know, I remember the day I met Bill Alexander. It was the day that I truly learned to see. I went to the Alexander Art Company for a job interview, and I was introduced to Bill. He was in the back room painting. I'd not seen him paint on TV, nor had I ever watched anyone paint before. I had the pleasure to stand and watch him create a beautiful painting in just a short time. When I left that day, I walked out the front door, and for the first time, I saw the world in living color. Trees weren't just green. They were green and brown and red. I think you know what I mean. You're in for a real treat today. We've worked hard to bring out of archives many things you've never seen before. We hope by the end of our time together, you will have just a little more understanding of who Bill was and why it matters.
Wonderful. Look how nice you can hypnotize.
Bill Alexander. Television is his medium and painting his craft. His public television show, The Magic of Oil Painting, reaches one of the largest audiences ever taught by a single artist. For millions of Americans, their first contact with the brush and canvas and the joy of creating.
I roll it over. This happened, this water, the stone was like a breaker, and here's a little bit of water movements, and bring it up, dance it up, dance.
To Bill Alexander, the magic of oil painting and the magic of life are one and the same. This is a portrait of an artist and the world in which he lives.
There, here it is, where you holler loud, yoo-hoo, because you would love to grab that almighty brush and fire into a canvas. See that wonderful land? When you paint, you see all the details, you see all the little movements, you hear it, you smell it, you feel it. There is the big difference.
I love that. To Bill Alexander, the magic of oil painting and the magic of life was one and the same. I have a feeling it is that way in your life too. I know it is in mine. I know you want to get more. I know you want to know more about Bill, so let's get right into the questions. So the first question is, who were Bill's teachers? You know, Bill said that he was born with a violin in one hand and a paintbrush in the other. He said music and art just came naturally to him. He was born with the ability to paint what he saw. Fortunately for us, he spent his lifetime perfecting ways to teach what came so naturally to him, to teach it to the rest of us. He did have one person who influenced him at a young age. Let's let Bill tell us about him.
I was going to ask, you know, a lot of your success has come, you inspire people and you give people a lot of encouragement to go out and learn how to paint and follow your technique. But when you were a young man and you were starting to learn, was there anybody that gave you encouragement that you can remember?
Yeah, I tell you, there was a guy, I think I said it on some of my shows already, other hobo, other wandering artist, but he was a genius, he was complete. And he started me off with the farmers laying on the fence, but I saw him doing that, and I thought, oh God, and he was so powerful. You could see the farmer, right? The face was right even, and he made with a couple strokes. And that was even the other wandering artists. I followed them sometime. I just didn't come home, and mother would always say, where is Bill, where is Bill, where is Bill? I had to see what that guy is doing. I followed, and he looked like a frog. We call him the frog man. He has such a big jar here.
You see, Bill didn't just learn how to paint from the traveling painter, fondly known as the frogman, but he learned that it's possible to listen to your heart and make a living through art. A fire began to burn within him. He also learned some clever ways to sell paintings. Let's hear Bill tell us about his greatest teacher, Mother Nature.
Where did you get that? You have an obvious love for nature and for the land. Where did you get that from?
It's hard. Some people love cities. I just love to put around with Mother Earth. Touching Earth to me is, oh God, this is wonderful. It's a wonderful feeling.
We're thrilled to show you this next clip. And Bill was one with Mother Nature, never more so than during his travels in America, especially in the West. He loved the vast scale of the land, particularly compared to what he had known as a child. He marveled at the Pacific Ocean sunsets. We see that in his paintings today. Those skies of bright, sometimes even translucent orange live in his paintings. The water reflections in big, bold speckles of red, then pink, then a green as sharp as a meadow enhances his images. Bill knew that these flashes of brilliant color might be over in as little as 15 minutes, so he developed an uncanny ability to remember these moments. We see them in paintings like Columbia River Gorge and Merced River. He was also amazed by the deserts of Utah and Nevada. Bill said, the land just roared on and on for miles and miles, and then in an instant, There were herds of antelope and swatches of green, places of water and trees. Bill was particularly fascinated by Montana. In some of his videos, he talks about the state's vastness. He loved how it stretched off into the horizon, how the flat land turned into golden rolling hills, rising to mountain heights. Bill felt that nature always had a lesson for you out there in the West, if you just looked for it. Bill's artistic eye was aided by his natural curiosity. During solitary moments, camping on the Columbia River at night, he watched how the full moon seemed to lie right on the river. Even though he knew the water was moving, the river had the appearance of motionless, molten lead. Bill couldn't figure out why it looked and felt that way to him. Yet, he was able to capture that moment to perfection in his painting, Colorado Canyon. Nothing escaped Bill's gaze. He paid attention to the vast river canyon environment. He scrutinized the tiniest scratchings of life and movement on the shore. He saw the story of valley inhabitants from the lines they scratched into the sand. Bill relates observing the remnants of a struggle between a rat and a snake. One was battling to survive while the other was hunting for dinner. He recorded the tracks of the rat's escaped attempt and tracked the tracings of the snake as it followed its prey in a slow, winding sketch in the sand. Bill observed their struggle and noticed how the snake moved off into the canyon dark. Behind remained the record of combat and death. Nothing missed Bill's inquisitive eye. He loved the way nature seemed to slow and even stop time. Yes, Mother Nature was Bill's greatest teacher. And yes, Bill was a master artist. Bill could paint anything. And as you now know, what we saw on television was limited to the short time he had. His television shows were his way to inspire and motivate each of us and to teach techniques. I hope you enjoyed seeing Bill's beautiful paintings as much as we enjoyed bringing them to you. It just moves me every time I see Bill's work.
Okay, Lori, and our next question is, what other painters inspired Bill?
What other painters inspired Bill? I want to tell you a story that Bill used to talk about. Bill's art was not only inspired by the old masters like Rembrandt, there were also modern artists that he admired. He liked Norman Rockwell, but his favorite artist was Charles Russell. Bill discovered Russell's art while on one of his trips into the West in the late 1960s. He was touring with an artist, Violet Parkhurst. They formed an art tour called Americana Art Circuit. Bill and Violet toured with about 300 paintings throughout several Western states. Can you imagine what that must have been like to see? They displayed the paintings at fairgrounds, shopping malls, and community halls. They also gave painting demonstrations. And while Bill was painting, people milled around and talked to him about their lives and their artwork. While on tour in a small town in Montana, Bill met an older woman who started telling him about Charles Russell. She had known Russell and related much about Russell's life. Born in Missouri, Russell traveled to Montana in 1880 to become a cowboy. She told Bill how Russell began painting the West as it was during the late 1800s, and how Russell was a wild spirit. Helena, Montana had a gallery of Russell's paintings. By the time the tour arrived in Helena, Bill was so interested in learning more about Russell that he went to see those paintings for himself. The first painting Bill saw stopped him cold. Bill said to himself, "Boy, this guy can paint." It was Russell's Camp Cook Troubles. Bill could see the movement and spirit Russell put into his paintings. It had hundreds of little details and captured the spirit of the men in the Old West. Bill loved the big, bold strokes. Russell used the big, bold strokes that Russell used throughout the painting. He felt a real affinity towards Russell because of Russell's love of the land and the people around him. Let's hear what Bill has to say about his favorite artists.
Who are some of your other artists that you really enjoy their work?
Norman Rockwell. I think he was a genius. He could do it in such a short time. The power of creating is short. You cannot create over long time because you run out of steam. And Charles Russell. They're actually the two big artists I always admire a lot because I think they had the talent and they painted with the humor. There was a certain humor in their paintings. When I think about Charles Russell, one painting, he came home, and the other guy, he came home late with his horse, and the other guys already had their fire and they cooked their soup. They were sitting around the fire, and nasty like he was, they will shout him, and he got that horse right over that fire. And what I really like, the way the horse acted. See, a lot of artists would paint a horse over a fire. It has no meaning. But this guy, the tail was in. You could see, oh God, I'm scared like that. The nostrils was up, the steam came out of his nose, and the figure, the way he jumped up that horse, the expression is absolutely fantastic. I think there's no artist that has ever done it better than those guys. There was masters in there. I wish I could be like them. It would be so wonderful. Yeah, maybe I will be one day. I hope.
Bill, you definitely were like them.
Hey, Lori, we have lots of activity in the chat, and
Good.
let's take a little breather and see. We have a few questions queued up in there to talk about. Our first one is from Michael King. He is asking, how old was Bill when he first started doing his TV show? Plus, what year did it start?
I believe it was like 1979. So Bill would have been, what, 64, I think? Or yeah, I think he was in his 60s when he started his television show. I think about 64. I want to say it started up in 1979 with KOCE. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later in the show.
Okay, and we have another question, and that's from Acrylic Mick Harper. Where is the best place to view his art in person?
Well, you know what? Unfortunately, there is no one place to view Bill's art in person. All of his paintings belong to private collectors, and the best we could do was bring you these images to show you. We've gathered all the images that we could of his great work, plus what you see on YouTube for his television shows. But unfortunately, there is no one place to see his work. We have some paintings, but not for public display.
Okay, and
I wish we did.
Yes, and we have another question from Acrylic Mick Harper. What was the one thing Bill did not like to paint?
Well, I'm going to talk about that a little bit later when I talk about how he did his television shows. So Mick, you're going to get your answer here shortly.
Okay, Lori, thanks for answering those. And what we're going to do now is continue. And here's our next question. Did Bill always paint wet on wet?
No, he didn't. As a young boy, Bill was always interested in art. After his mother died when Bill was 14, he was apprenticed to a saddle maker and carriage upholsterer. One of Bill's jobs was to paint the finishing touches on the carriages. These were usually images of flowers, landscapes, or even images of the hunt, which were popular among the wealthy later. He would paint large murals in the homes of the wealthy landowners who lived near the village. As a young man, Bill became a traveling painter himself. He wandered the East Prussian countryside, painting portraits, landscapes, and farm scenes on everything: canvas, the walls, buildings, wooden panels. At night, he slept under the stars, or he painted in exchange for lodging and food. It was a wonderful opportunity for a young man to apply his trade and learn about the world around him. As he moved from one Prussian village to another, Bill wanted to learn more, and for a brief time, he was tutored by an artist in a small university town. His thirst for knowledge could not be satisfied. He knew he he wanted to learn even more.
Okay, Bill, the next question I'd like to ask you, when you were a young guy and you were roaming around and painting for people, what kinds of paintings were you doing? What style?
Landscapes was the main thing. And you could go to farmers, and the farmer would ask you to paint him standing on the fence post and the farm behind him. And we learned all kinds of wonderful things in that time. You had the whole landscape behind, and then the best part of his farm, or whatever he liked the most. And then he was leaning on his white shirts. You could see the braces, whatever. And he would stand there, and you painted him. And then they paid you. They paid you so a little bit.
This next clip shouldn't surprise anyone. You're going to see now where Bill first got into the hearts of the American people. Bill always said he was a lover, not a fighter.
The Second World War went by and I became an American prisoner, and I painted beautiful paintings for the American soldiers, and they became my dear friends, and they helped me getting into America. I think it is fantastic for anyone when you come here, see the new world and see the freedom. People really should realize freedom is such a wonderful thing, and I'm very, very thankful for that.
So after he painted portraits for the American soldiers and he found his way over to America, he painted all different kinds of subjects, but in a traditional style of painting. I want to share with you now more images of his early work, things that I bet you've never seen before. Hey, Gord, before you ask the next question, I realized that I failed to tell you guys that we are going to announce the grand prize winner at towards the end of the show. We had a contest and we had hundreds and hundreds of people enter the contest, and we're so grateful for that. And we are going to announce, we have a lot of people had won prizes, and all of that you'll be notified after the later on by Alexander Art whether you won. But we will announce the grand prize winner towards the end of the show.
Okay, Lori, let's continue with our next question. How did Bill figure out the wet on wet technique?
Well, Bill was inventive. He was always looking for a way to do something easier or to make it better. As he will tell you shortly, he was always mixing his paint with white on the canvas. So he thought, why not start with the white on the canvas? He discovered that by putting white on the canvas first, he saved himself hours and hours on each of the paintings he did. He also enjoyed the depth he could create so quickly by starting this way. Bill was making a living by selling his paintings and needed to paint faster. He couldn't take months to paint one painting, so he returned to an old master's technique of painting wet on wet. The thing is, Bill could have just kept this technique to himself, so he had an advantage over other people that were doing the same thing at a time, making a living selling paintings. But that was not Bill's nature, to keep it to himself. As he used to say, he blabbered it out. He not only wanted to make it easier for himself, but for everyone around him. So he started doing public demonstrations in shopping centers, hardware stores, anywhere he could find to share what he had discovered. Bill didn't invent wet on wet, but he did popularize it, however, and is responsible for bringing it to America. He's the one who announced to the world that anyone could do it, that art wasn't for a select few who were born with God-given talent. What he did invent was a system to make it possible to paint wet on wet easily. He developed a special thick paint and brushes that worked well for the wet on wet technique. You might not have seen Bill while he was on public television, but he is responsible for paving the way for every artist that followed. Let's hear Bill answer this question in his own words.
Yeah, my almighty dream took me out of Halifax. I left for Toronto, and I knew in the South you have more people and there's more action, and I thought if I want to make it with paintings, I have to do it there. But then I learned, being on the shopping centers and having classes there, I could never make it with the way I did it before. So I had to develop a new technique. And I really worked hard on that, and I came out with the wonderful answer there. And the way I painted then, my students enjoyed it more, the teaching was easier, and I started making money all of a sudden. And my paintings turned out so much better too. So I could express myself in such a short time. And there is really where my dream came true. And from there on, naturally, I left for the United States to Los Angeles and far and far.
Do you notice that Bill was not selfish or greedy? He wanted to share it with everyone, and he wanted to share it with the world. And I think as you learn more and more about Bill today, you're going to discover that was truly the essence of who Bill Alexander was. All he wanted to do was have his basic needs met. But just as important to him was that everyone else had their basic needs met too.
You know, I was very, very lucky because I had enough talent to make a living with my almighty brush. And therefore, I could travel a lot. I have seen all America, quite more than a lot of people. They are born here because I always could pay my bills on the road. Sometimes I had to stop somewhere, or I need new parts on the car. I could always sell a couple of paintings, even if I had to sell them very cheap. But I could put gas in my car. I could still wash up. I still could rent a hotel room. And it was a wonderful, wonderful thing for me to live off my talent.
So I think now I'll tell you a little bit about Bill's TV career. Bill began his TV career with KOCE in Huntington Beach, California. He filmed 5 13-week series and a documentary between 1979 and 1983. Bill was the first artist to win an Emmy for his television show called The Magic of Oil Painting. The story goes that when they were reviewing the shows that had been submitted for the contest, normally they just kind of watched bits and pieces of it. And they watched the beginning of his show, and then they watched a little further, and then they watched the end, and they were so blown away and couldn't believe he painted a painting in such a short time that they went back and watched the entire thing. Between the years of 1986 and 1994, he filmed 19 more series with our company, Alexander Art. These are the shows that you see on the YouTube channel. You know, Bill used to say, "It is not you or me, but you and me." He took this to heart as he helped many other artists further their art career by introducing them to his television audience. Alexander Art produced hundreds of other shows by other artists. You know, to be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment. Ralph Waldo Emerson. Bill realized that at some point in his life, he became a teacher more than a painter. From that point on, it became important to him to share the techniques he learned throughout his career with others. Bill's techniques were at odds with many traditional painters. You know, people often said, "This isn't real art." They criticized him for simplifying and sharing the process. At the time, he suffered the cruel barbs of their criticism in silence. In spite of that, though, Bill kept on doing what he felt was right for him. E. E. Cummings wrote, "To be nobody but yourself in a world which is doing its best night and day to make you everybody else means to fight the hardest battle, which any human being can fight and never stop fighting." Bill's celebrity came late in life, but gave him the opportunity to teach so many more people than he ever thought possible. In the first year of his television program, he taught more people how to paint than he did in his entire career. Bill's passion was to share his techniques with everyone who wanted to learn. He often said he wished he could reach out and touch his television audience. He wanted to talk with them about their stories and about their dreams. Of course, he also wanted to talk about painting. Television was wonderful. 28 minutes, though, was just not enough time to share all he wanted with his fans. His fans continued to write and ask for more techniques and more material. Many more wrote to ask Bill to speak about creative power and the joy and happiness of painting and his philosophy of life. I'd like to tell you a little bit about Bill's filming style. Bill Alexander could not be scripted. Early in his career, directors would try, and it just wouldn't work. Finally, one day, they decided to just let him be himself. He pretended he was at the shopping centers, and the magic just happened. Bill was 71 years old when he began filming shows produced by Alexander Art. By then, he was a seasoned pro. He would come into the studio and we would ask, "Bill, what are you going to paint today?" He would say, "Oh, I don't know, a sunset-y kind of painting. We will see." Now, normally that would make a director very, very nervous. We didn't have to worry, though, because Bill always came through. You see, he would stand at his easel. We would give him the countdown, and then he would go to work. He did not look at anything while he painted. He painted from his mind. I don't know if you know that. He would paint what was in his heart and what was on his mind. He was able to do this because he had been painting and studying nature for so long. As we heard earlier, the magic of painting and the magic of life were one and the same for Bill. He never stopped studying Mother Nature. I remember we were out at Silver Falls. We were filming a series out there. And one morning I got up and went for breakfast. And I looked out and I saw Bill, and he was standing under a tree, and he was just gazing up at the tree, studying the moss. In Oregon, there's a lot of moss on the trees. He was studying how the moss hung down. And he was always looking up into the clouds and studying the cloud formation. Later that day, he painted one of the shows. In fact, it's probably up on YouTube. And he painted the moss hanging down on the trees. It was fascinating. He did it he wasn't even looking at the tree at the time. He just had the ability to put it in his mind and bring it out through his heart and through his hands onto the canvas. Just to let you know what parameters Bill had to work with, he had to finish a painting in 28 minutes and 30 seconds, right on time. We counted him down. He had to say, "Thank you for watching me. Bye-bye," right at the second. Even though he was teaching techniques, he had to have something that looked like a finished painting, good enough to print in a book. Bill would film 5 to 6 shows a day, standing at the easel, sometimes one show right after another. We were all younger, but yeah, he wore us out. Once he had 17 episodes completed, he had to paint them all again for the still photographer. Mick, to answer your question, this was the worst part for Bill. You see, we filmed in standard definition, and the technology of today didn't exist. Now we can take still shots off of the high definition videos and print a high resolution image. Then we couldn't do that. We also couldn't take photos as we went along because we were recording and the sound of the camera clicks interfered. And we also couldn't get close enough to get good shots. Believe me, we tried everything so Bill wouldn't have to paint these again. So when Bill had to paint the shows again, there was nothing creative about it for him. He had to follow his own video to repeat what he had done. And that was torture for Bill. So Mick, that is what Bill did not like to paint, was what he had just painted. Sometimes he wanted to make the painting better. We had to remind him that he had to do it as close to the video as possible because people at home would be following along using his book and video. You know, I remember a painting, it was a redwoods painting, and he'd put the shadow in the wrong way. And he wanted to correct it. And he had to follow the video. And it was just torture for him. But anyway, that's why sometimes, because he painted a second painting, we had 2 versions of each one. And he would get as close as he could, but he could not let his creative mind go. And so sometimes there was a little bit of variation. And so that is why sometimes you'll see a difference in what's in a book and what is on a DVD.
Wow, Lori. I'm curious, if Bill didn't need direction, were there any challenges?
Well, the biggest challenge, Gord, was the fact that we all needed a break and he didn't. We'd say, "Oh, Bill, you want to sit down? You want to take a break? Would you like to?" And he'd go, no, let's start the next one. And we were all on the set standing. He was standing and painting. A lot of times I was on the set giving him time cues. And we all wanted a break and Bill didn't. So I would have to say the hardest thing was that he pushed us harder than we, not that we wanted to work, because we were thrilled because he did produce a lot of shows when he came, and he just didn't want to shut off the creative mind. He was on a roll and he was going, and we had to go with it. But the fact that sometimes we needed a break was probably the hardest thing. Very cool, Lori. Let's take a look at what's going on in live chat. And before I go there, I just want to share with everyone, we have over 235 people live. This is fantastic. Very busy chat. Thank you all. This is just amazing. Okay. In our chat, we have from Steve Hinton. Did he practice his painting prior to doing it on TV, or did he just let loose and fire it in? Yeah, Steve, that's what I was just talking about. He did not practice it. And he was the only artist that I know of. Well, he was the only artist that we would let film that way, just because we knew Bill could pull that off. And we knew that, think about it, if he didn't want to repaint it, he would not have wanted to paint from something. He would not have wanted to follow step by step of something he had already created. We captured his creativity by letting him do it his way. So no, he did not practice it, but he would tell you, yes, I did. For like 50 years, I practiced that. And it was in his mind, those images, because he was a true master artist and had a good understanding of art principles and everything, he could just produce something on the spot.
Okay, thank you. Our next question is from Uncle 60. Did Bill ever teach in a classroom setting?
Yes, he did. Bill did a lot of teaching. In fact, there's a great story about that early on when people wanted him to teach classes, and he said, "Oh, no, 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 I'm not a teacher. No, 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 I'm not a teacher." And they pushed him and they pushed him. And finally, I love it when Bill tells this story. He says, they came up with this envelope, and I looked in the envelope, and it was full of money. And I thought, I am a teacher. I love that. So he was kind of pushed into being a teacher, but he did a lot of teaching in the early days. And as he developed his technique, he helped his students know how to adapt the paint that they had before he had created his thick paint. He taught them how to use the products in a way that would work for his technique. So he did a lot of classroom teaching. But I will tell you, by the time I met him in 1986, he was no longer teaching in the classroom. So I never did get to take a class from him, but I got to watch him paint a lot, and I did get to take classes from his teachers.
Okay. Our next question is from Edward Carroll. He wants to know, how many years did Bill paint before he started to make his own paint and brushes?
Well, since he started painting as a young boy, and he actually started as a professional when he was like 16 years old, he painted a long time. So his paints and brushes didn't come along until the 70s. And so you can see that he painted a long time before he got to that point. I just want to tell you tell a story that as he developed his paint, he learned that if he put a thick paint on the canvas first, and then he could put a thin coat over and not have to wait for the layers to dry. And so a lot of people say, wait a minute, it's not thin on thick. He puts a thin coat of magic white on the canvas, very, very thin, very, very thin, like almost not even there. Then he puts the thick paint, and then he thins the paint, and he lays that right on top of the thick paint. And so as he learned to do that, and as he perfected that in his classes, he decided that he wanted to make his own paint. Marguerite said to him, "Bill, why are you killing yourself making this paint? You can do anything with paint. You can make paint work any way you want." But you know what? He did it for us. He did it because he wanted it to be easier for his students. He wanted his students to be able just to squeeze paint out of a tube and be able to go to work. So he was so excited, he mortgaged his house and he went to a paint company in California to have his first batch of paint made. He was so excited. The day arrived, the paint was done. He met with the chemist. They got it all down. Yes, it needed to be just this thick. Yes, just this dry. Yes, just this way. And he was so excited. The truck was backing up to his door, and it was the day of the delivery of the paint. And he opened the tube and he was so excited, and he squeezed it out. And he said it was just soft and it just ran out the tube. And he was devastated. Bill lost his home because that paint wasn't something he would sell. It was not at a quality that he would sell. The paint was no good. He trashed the paint and he lost his home. And it devastated him for a couple years. And as he got sick, but Bill, in the way Bill is, he stepped back up and he went and he continued on. He experienced so much darkness in his life that he knew to look for the light and to start again. But for him to develop that paint that we can use today, it took his lifetime. And he says in one of the videos, I don't think we're watching it today, but he said in one of the videos that you should really, really like that paint because it cost him his blood, he said.
Wow. One more question here, Lori, from Carolyn Arnett. Was Bill the first painter with his own show?
Yes, Bill was was the first painter with his own show. Now there was a guy that did drawing shows way back in the way before '60s, in the '60s, a long time, that had a long time drawing show on. But Bill was the first one to have a painting show, and everyone, like I said earlier, he paved the way for everyone that followed.
Very nice. And just before we get back in, I'd like to thank Michael Daniels for Super Chat. And he's, I know him well. He's a live game show host, and he's been a good advisor to us in support of doing our production today. So thank you, Michael. And Lori, let's continue now with our next question, and we'll get back. There's more questions queued up, but let's keep things going, and we'll get back to that in a little bit. Okay.
All right. Hopefully some of your questions will be answered.
Our next question is, what was Bill really like in private versus on TV?
Oh, this is my favorite question to answer. Because you know what? I know you've all seen Bill on video. And so you really know what he's like, because with Bill, there was no act, absolutely no act. He was exactly like in private. He was exactly like he was on television. One of the beautiful things about Bill is that he just spoke from his heart, always. He always spoke from his heart. I spent a lot of time on the road with him, and I saw him in so many settings. He was truly a beautiful soul. Now we're going to watch a series of video clips to help give you a glimpse into the life of Bill Alexander. 4 of Bill's traits that I think you will notice in these clips is that Bill was a giver. He was passionate about life. He was humble. And he was very, very grateful.
Okay, back in my land is a beautiful stream going through. That water you can drink. And I know we have salmon coming up to spawn, but not enough. And I decided, God conserving, man on earth, we need food. We have to live tomorrow. Yeah, what you see here, this is my pride and joy. This creek is a little bit low now. We didn't have much rain this year. But here, thousands of salmon come up to spawn. And I have a crazy attitude towards Mother Earth. If I conserve it, if I bring something to it, not destroying, only building. And now I have a wonderful fish hatchery, and next year we will have 20,000 coho salmon and 75,000 chum salmon. We will send them into the ocean, and in 3 years they come back to spawn. But 5% only can come back, because the rest will be caught to fishermen like me. I love to fish. And I feel I put it into the ocean, so I feel I have the right to take it out. And I will only maybe catch, 20, 30 altogether, but I put thousands and thousands into the ocean.
Basically, what you see here is the culmination, perhaps, of one of Bill's dreams. He's been very interested ever since I've known him in fish. And his idea was to put back some of those that he's taken. So what he did was he came and asked the Department of Fisheries what he could do to help the salmon stocks in the area. Between he and myself and several other people with a little more technical expertise, we came up with the design which you basically see around you here today. And this little hatchery will produce something like 20,000 fry the first year, and if it's at all successful, it'll double that capacity in the second year. So Bill, by putting in this small hatchery here, is assisting us, the fish, and the people of Canada in general.
You know the story they don't tell you here? That Bill told me once. It was about time, many times Bill was hungry in his life. But one particular time he was starving. And he prayed to God that if he could just have food, that he promised he would give back. Bill was a man of his word, and that's exactly what he did. By putting thousands of fish in the ocean, this is just one example of his giving nature. We get so many comments from people who love to see Bill's enthusiasm and passion for life. It was a joy to be with Bill. His excitement and zeal for life, for anything he set out to do, was contagious.
When I was teaching, I could not say pain, fire, and do it the way nature is. Look back here, what you see right now. Isn't that so powerful that you wouldn't fiddle, you couldn't do that. I think a complete human being with a wonderful heart in his body, with blood in their veins, they see so much explosion. And this explosion, as an artist, you fire onto that canvas, and that fire that burns and burns, kids and the grandkids, they will still see that fire burning on your canvas. I think that's a wonderful thing. You know, I talk so much almighty. I use that word so much, and a lot of people picked on me sometime. They would say, don't you use that word almighty because God is almighty. Naturally, God is almighty. God, give me that almighty power. He shouts, right now you see behind me that almighty power. God has given me that, and I use it in the fall. I use it full, complete. I don't use it half. And this is why I had to say, almighty is my almighty brush. I put my almighty paint on my almighty palette, and I put it on the almighty canvas. And if you can do it, my God, what a joy to be on this earth. And I thank God, thanks you for that.
You know, it's really hard to be misunderstood. Bill never meant anything but honor for God in his use of the word almighty. Many times Bill would say on TV that he wished that we could all meet and paint together. Often he extended an invitation right on TV for people to come see him in Powell River. And they did. People would often drive to Canada and stay with Bill many times unannounced, and sometimes they'd stay for weeks. He'd take them fishing, he'd cook for them, and then teach them to paint. That was the kind of man Bill was.
Through all the years being on TV, I know you know me, and I know you too, and I love you because you love me too. And I wish I had you sitting around me right now, because it is so wonderful. I'm so motivated. There's so much power around me, and I like to share it. I really like to share it, because when you reach the height of your thinking and feeling, you always wish you had someone to share with. And here is the spot. And look, that almighty power, the movement. I get so motivated. And that is what I put on the canvas. You see, that makes me doing what I do. So now you see why I paint the way I paint, and why I paint so quick, because I'm so motivated, I'm so full of energy, because the land feeds me, the power, the secret power feeds me, and let me do, my hands do things I don't know even what I'm doing, because when you see that, I think you feel the same thing.
You know, another trait that Bill had that I saw over and over again was just how humble he was. All the years I worked with him, he never let his fame go to his head. After you watch this next clip, I want to tell you a story.
What a surprise for me to be on TV all of a sudden, because I have no training and I have no background. I always thought someone on TV has to really study that. And I painted all my life, and you know, it's just a normal thing, and all of a sudden you're on TV, and people tell me I'm even good. I myself never knew that, and that makes it really fantastic for me.
So I was traveling with Bill. We were going to a trade show somewhere, and we were boarding a plane. And as he handed his ticket to the flight attendant, he asked, "How long is this flight?" And she looked at him and she said, "Mr. Alexander, you could paint 5 paintings by the time you get there." And Bill said, "Okay, good, good." We were in flight, and all of a sudden, a flight attendant brought him a bottle of champagne. And the pilot announced to the passengers that Bill Alexander, the happy painter, was on the plane. Everyone began to applaud, and Bill was so surprised. I was sitting next to him, and he leaned over to me and he whispered, "I'm a big shot. I did not know that." That was later in his career after winning an Emmy, and after all the success he had, Bill always stayed humble.
In a way, Bill is in an enviable position because he's come to Powell River and he's chosen it as his home, as his retirement, and he lives here in relative anonymity. I think if you canvass the people, there are very few people who realize his popularity and what's happening to him through his art in the United States. I think one of the appeals that he has for people in general, and for me in particular, is that he really thinks that the individual is important. And I think that's something that sometimes gets lost in society today when we tend to think of great nations and provinces and states and towns. But really all they are is a collection of individuals. And Bill feels that the individual is important and can change his own life and what's happening around him, and he projects that to people, and they find that very appealing, and I think that's why he attracts them so much.
Bill would get thousands and thousands of fan letters from people about how he inspired them or how he changed their life by something he said on television. And this next clip is going to show you just exactly what happened to every one of those letters.
Mrs. Alexander, enclosed is a painting you did in the American Legion.
Yeah, every day I go to the mailbox, and Brandy naturally goes with me, and then we take the mail, bring it home, and I put it on the table, we have a cup of coffee, and Margaret reads the letters to me, and it is a joy to know what people really think about me. I never think about me, what people really do think, because I just think I paint a picture, and that's all it is. And a lot of people are so excited about that, and they tell me how they paint, and they send us a lot of pictures, what they painted. And it's a joy to see people doing good with what I do, and I feel very, very happy that I'm able to do those things.
Home. You are the master.
It did become a full-time job for Marguerite to read the letters to Bill. She would answer everyone personally. It got to the point where she was spending all day answering letters. His popularity grew to a point where it was impossible for her to respond to everyone. Come to think of it, that's why I ended up with a job at Alexander Art. Initially, I was hired to manage his art club and to write his instructional books. So we decided that we would have an art club and that we would put out a newsletter and let everyone know where Bill was going to appear and what things were happening in his life. Do you know we grew that art club to 30,000 subscribers? I'm grateful that there was so much mail that they needed to start an art club.
Okay, Lori, we continue to have a very busy live chat and lots of comments going. And we have now over 277 people live. We were as high as 295 from what I saw, which is fantastic. Thank you all for being here. So let's look at some of those additional comments here. So here we go. Acrylic McHarper says, do you know how many paintings he could do in an 8-hour day or so?
Well, if he was filming them for television, he could do probably sometimes up to 6. He did 6 episodes in a day. And he was in his 70s. I mean, he was like 71 to 70, I'm not good at math. 70. Anyway, he was at least past 75, 76, 77. He was still filming, and he could do 6 episodes in a day. Now, if he was painting just on his own, you know, for example, some of the paintings that you saw, maybe he spent a couple hours painting. So maybe he did 2 or 3 of those in a day or 4, but some of his finer work, he spent a little longer time on. Obviously, when he was in the studio, he wasn't painting as quickly as he does on TV. And he was also doing, you know, he was mixing both the wet on wet with traditional style painting.
Okay. let's go to our next question. Does anyone know if the quality of the paints and brushes are made by the same company or has it changed?
Oh, Lori, I'm glad you asked that question because I will tell you it's made by the same company, our company. And I will tell you, you won't find our paint in stores. We used to sell in all of the Hobby Lobbies and Joann's and all of those stores. You won't find us there anymore. You can buy our products direct at alexanderart.com. The reason why is because we will not sell a product that isn't to Bill's standards, and we will not compromise on the quality. Like I said earlier, Bill spent his lifetime developing this product. Now, we have made a few changes that I think I'm going to talk about when we're going to talk about Magic White. We have made some changes recently that I know Bill would be very, very happy with. But yes, the paint and brushes are still, you can still get them from us, Alexander Art. It's the same company. We've changed names throughout the years. We started out as W. Alexander Magic Art Supplies, Inc. We went to Alexander Art. And so actually, those are the two names. When I first was hired, it was W. Alexander Magic Art Supplies, Inc. And then we changed it to Alexander Art. So yes, it's still same quality. And I will guarantee you that every brush you get and every tube of paint you get is a quality that Bill would be very proud of. And if you ever get a product that isn't up to standards, I want to know about it.
Okay. Our next question, which I know you're going to address in a little bit, is from Jay Armstrong. He wanted to know, did Bill teach Bob Ross?
Jay, thanks for asking that question. Yes, we are going to talk about that in a little bit. Yes, to answer your question, yes, Bill taught Bob Ross, but we will talk a little bit about that in a little bit.
Okay. And our next question is from Explosive Action Archive. Do you know what is the difference between Bill Alexander's Magic White and Bob Ross's Liquid White, or are they exactly the same?
Well, I guarantee you they're not exactly the same at all. I cannot tell you the difference between the two. I do know what Magic White is and I know it very, very well. I know what it's made of and I know the quality. And I have heard from a lot of people that there's a lot of difference between the two, but I know that we're very, very proud of Magic White and the quality of product that it is. And I will tell you that it's environmentally friendly and that we've taken all of the toxins. I'm going to talk about that in a minute, but we've taken that all out of the paint, which Bill would be really, really pleased to know. So I can't tell you about Liquid White, but I can tell you that you can't go wrong with Magic White.
Okay, thank you, Lori. And we're going to head back into the show to continue, but just a couple of quick acknowledgments here. And I'd like to appreciate Aaron Rutten. I apologize if I pronounced that wrong. Thanks. He says, thanks for all your wisdom and creative inspiration, Bill. And thanks for keeping Bill's work alive through this channel.
Oh, thank you, Aaron. We appreciate that.
Yeah. And another super chat from Steve Craig. Thank you, Steve. Hope you're enjoying the show, and we appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you, Steve.
Okay, so now let's continue on with the show. And that's going to be with our next question, which is, what is Magic White, and did Bill invent it?
Well, good. That's a great lead-in from the last question. Magic White, it's a thin oil-based medium developed by Bill Alexander to coat his canvas so he could mix paint directly on the canvas. Bill studied all of the art products he could find, and if he couldn't find something to work the way he wanted it to, he would modify it. So he came up with a formula that would work just the way he wanted it to. The original formula had odorless thinner in it. Bill always wished he didn't have to use paint thinner. He said that often. He'd be so pleased today to know that we now have an environmentally friendly, no thinner formula of Magic White. We don't even use thinner anymore to clean our brushes as well. He'd be so pleased to know that. So yes, Bill did invent Magic White.
Okay, thank you. And our next question, what are the most important lessons that Bill wanted painters to learn?
I could get emotional about this. Bill wanted people to know that everyone has the ability and everyone can paint. He wanted people not to be afraid. He used to tell stories about teaching classes, and people would be afraid to put that first stroke on the canvas, and he'd holler, "Just do it." He wanted people just to jump in. He wanted people to know that there was no such thing as a mistake, that anything could be corrected, or that sometimes what went on the canvas, a happy little mistake, was worth keeping. Bill wanted people to have courage and to not be able to not be afraid to try, and to not listen to people around them, not to listen to the critics, not to listen to your art teacher from years ago that said, no, painting was only for people with special talent. If you weren't born with that talent, find something else to do. That was his message. I can remember a story that he told me about one of his many business ventures. He met a man who had a gallery, and the gallery owner loved Bill's work. And he said he'd sell his paintings in the gallery. So Bill was supposed to stay in the back room and just keep painting and painting more paintings for him to sell. One day while Bill was painting, he could hear a conversation between a customer and a gallery owner. He heard the gallery owner say to the customer, "Oh, Bill spent months and months on that painting." And Bill came running out of the back room and said, no, I did it in 3 hours, and I can show you how to do it too. Later in life, when Bill was painting so quickly, people would comment on how much his painting should sell for because it took him so little time to complete a painting. And Bill would say, I painted that painting in 40 years and 30 minutes. He would say, it took me 40 years to be able to paint that painting in 30 minutes. Yes, I think Bill's most important message is to have courage to follow your heart and not be afraid to do hard things, not to give up, follow your dreams. Bill's life was a great example of this. Bill experienced more darkness in his lifetime than most of us ever will. He taught us that we have to have the dark to see the light. Bill remained optimistic in spite of the darkness around him, and so can we. I think that's the message he would want us to know. I think it's important to not only watch Bill paint, but listen to what he says, and you will learn some of life's greatest lessons.
Okay, Lori, our next question, and there's a lot of activity in the chat about this, and that is, what was the relationship between Bill Alexander and Bob Ross?
Bill Alexander, as I said before, was instrumental in helping a lot of artists further their career. And he introduced a lot of artists to his television audience. And that was because Bill was the kind of guy that he was. He was a giver. He wanted to help other people. He was, like I said, it's not you or me, it's you and me. And he was always the kind of guy that if he took a step, he wanted to reach out and help the next person take the next step up so they could be successful as well. So Bill taught Bob Ross. Bob started as a student of Bill's, and Bill saw a lot of potential in Bob. In fact, so much so that he chose him to be his protege. Bill was reaching an age that he knew that he couldn't continue on. He was wanting to retire and do other things. He was approaching 70 years old. And so he selected Bob to be the protege. And in fact, Bill helped Bob with his early TV career. The company helped underwrite those shows to make that happen. You've seen clips, I'm sure you've all seen clips where Bill's handing the palette knife over to Bob. And, Bill had so much notoriety at the time, and he was a household name. late 70s, 80s, and 90s. And so a lot of times Bill would appear with different artists to kind of help boost their career, because if he's associated with Bill, then he must be a good guy. And so Bill was ready to retire, and the plan was that Bob was going to continue Bill's legacy and continue to teach the world to paint like Bill was trying to do. And Bob had other plans. So instead of doing that, Bob decided to do his own thing and start his own company. And then instead of being his protege, he became his competitor. And I know that people wonder, were there hard feelings? Did Bill have hard feelings? Was he resentful? I've heard people say that Bill was jealous. I will tell you, I knew Bill Alexander. I knew him well. And I will tell you, he was not resentful and he was not jealous by any means. He was hurt because he was such a giver. He was willing to give and give and give, and to give to anybody and to help anybody. And what happened is that because Bob Ross decided to do his own thing and no longer be with Bill and his company, Bill did what he always did. He dusted himself off and he went back to work. And at age 71, he started producing television shows again with us. We have nearly 200 episodes that he produced, all because Bob Ross decided to do something else, and and that put Bill in a position to go back to work. And so in a way, we can be very grateful, because we would not have these episodes today. All of these shows that are on our channel and all of the hours and thousands of hours that you get to spend with Bill wouldn't have happened. So we're grateful that we have those shows. I saw Bill in different settings, and I wasn't there at this particular time, but I remember there was a story where he was at a trade show in Dallas, Texas. And he went into a store after the show. And when he came out, a man said to him, Mister, my daughter, my daughter. And just instinctively, Bill took off running and followed this man into the dark to help him with his daughter. And the man turned around and put a gun in his mouth and robbed him. And when Bill told me this story, he always talked about that it's important to forgive, that it's important to move on. And it's really, really important to be forgiving, that's the way we're supposed to be. He didn't hold any resentment. I remember picking him up when he was staying in a hotel when we were filming, and I picked him up in the morning. And he told me, he said he looked out the window and down on the street, he could see a grate where the heat would rise up from underneath the city. And there was a man sleeping on there. And he said to me, I had an extra bed. And Bill was going to give this man his bed. But he said, you just never know. So I just didn't do it, but I wanted to do it. I should have done it, is what he said to me when I picked him up. So I know that back part wasn't part of the Bob Ross part, but just keeping in mind who Bill was and how giving Bill was. I think the other thing to know is that not only did Bill Alexander give Bob a good boost on television, he also helped several other artists, Robert Warren and Buck Paulson, Lowell Spears, Brenda Harris. There were a lot of artists that Alexander Art put on television that went into the homes and into Bill's TV audience. We did that clip recorded because we wanted to be able to share the photos with you. We have a few more clips to show you, but before we do that, we'd like to announce the grand prize winner of our Alexander Art Contest. To those of you who participated in our contest, thank you. Hundreds of you showed up and joined in the fun. We have several winners today. And if you're one of them, you will be notified by email. So just hang tight. Alexander Art will be in touch with you in the next few days about your prize. We gave away quite a few prizes. The grand prize winner gets access to our Alexander Art Academy for an entire year. What this means, this is a $280 value. And what it means is the winner is going to be able to watch nearly 300 videos and participate in several of our digital art courses 24/7. You'll see a lot of stuff that isn't on the channel by other artists as well. We're pleased to announce the grand prize winner is Chris Rios. I hope I pronounced your name right, Chris. Congratulations, Chris. And congratulations to the rest of the winners. Just remember, you'll be notified by email in the next few days from us. We have 3 final clips, including a special message from Bill. And then there'll be a short hangout afterwards. So if you want to stick around and ask more questions, we'll be here. Years ago, we had a painting seminar at Silver Falls State Park, located in Oregon. Otz Kilcher is a singer and a songwriter. You might know him from the television show Alaska, The Last Frontier. He's also a personal friend of mine, and he attended the seminar. When he arrived on Sunday, I asked him to write a song about Bill Alexander and to perform it on the closing night, 5 days away. And being the professional that he is, he said, okay, I'll do it. But he made me promise. He was using my computer to write the song, and he made me promise not to look at the lyrics. And so I didn't, as tempting as it was. Not only did he write the song in a short time, he recruited other participants to practice and to perform with him on our closing night. Thankfully, someone in the audience captured it on a cell phone. This is the only recorded version of this song that we have, and we'd like to share it with you now. I think Otz really captured the spirit of Bill Alexander.
And I thank all of you people what made and helped me to be what I can do, what I can be here. Otherwise, without you, I would sit somewhere in a hole and shovel, gravel, or do something. Now you made me sit in a happy little boat and enjoy. And I wish I could be a help for you too. We will be. Some way or another, we will meet. Have fun. Bye-bye.
When you dream, anything is possible. You can fly through the air to a distant land. You can be a king or queen, see things you haven't seen, with a dream in your heart and your hand, and your hand. Who knows where you go when you're dreaming? But who can say where you stay by the light of day? To some, dreaming won't come easy, but to the dreamer, the dream leads the way. I am a dreamer. To the dreamer, the dream leads the way.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. It's been a privilege to be here with you as we've celebrated this wonderful human being, Bill Alexander. You know, someone commented on our channel a while back that it's a shame that more people don't know about Bill Alexander. I agree. I hope you now have a better insight to the great man that he was, and that you'll help us spread the word so Bill can continue to make the world a better place. We're going to hang out for a while longer to see what's going on in the live chat and answer a few more questions. Thank you.
Hi, Lori. Wow.
Hi.
It's incredible. We still have 250 people in the stream, and we're so happy to have been able to bring this to you all today. And I'm going to share some more questions. And if anybody else has anything to add, feel free to type it into the live chat. We're happy to share. And I'm going to...
Gord?
Sure, Lori. Yes.
I just saw a message. I'm sorry. Dusty, I agree with you. I wanted to say, I'm not crying, you're crying. So I just saw that comment in the there that Dusty Day Drinker says, I'm not crying, you are. So go ahead, Gord. Sorry for the interruption.
I bet there's a lot of tears there. So,
yeah.
Okay. Our first question here is, what about Bill inspires you most, Lori? That's from Laura Sherwood.
Oh, Laura. Ooh, I may get emotional about this. Probably to bring light, to spread light in the world, to always do good, always be truthful, always stand up for what's right, to not let people that want to knock you down, to stand strong and to stand on your principles. And I think that's probably one of the greatest things that inspires me with Bill. And, you know, why I, 35 years later now, am still carrying on his legacy is because I believe in Bill's message. That's a common message that we know, and that light is what matters, and that we should bring more light into the world. And what inspires me is that this is a way through art we get to continue to bring light into the world. Thank you for the question, Laura.
Our next question is from William Wild. Is it possible to buy original signed Bill paintings?
William, that's a great question. I know that on occasion, people contact me, and when a lot of times what happens is maybe someone that has one of Bill's paintings passes away, and someone inherits it and they don't have the same appreciation for it, and they'll contact our company first to see if it's worth a lot of money, and then also possibly wanting to sell it. And so sometimes, you know, if you are someone that's interested in buying an Alexander original, you might reach out to me, my email address is Laurie, Laurie, at alexanderart.com. And I can put you on a list because I do get notified periodically. And also sometimes they'll show up on eBay. But I know, we get notified a lot. So if you want to be on a list to be notified, just reach out to me and we'll do that.
Okay. Our next question here is from Painting Delight. Hello. Does anyone know why I can't find 150 mil tubes of paint on the official Alexander Art page, and why are the small tubes so pricey?
Yeah, I can tell you. We are not selling the paint in large tubes anymore. Well, not anymore, not right now. We possibly will again in the future, but I will tell you the reason the small tubes are pricey is because of the quality of the paint. The pigment load, it's one of the best paints you can ever find. And so again, when we were selling in Joann's and some of Hobby Lobby, some of the chains, we had to make a decision. Did we want to continue to sell a high quality paint, or did we want to get into a race to the bottom and sell a compromised paint? And we chose not to. And so, and I will tell you that when we made that decision and we decided to sell just direct, you can imagine we're selling a lot less tubes of paint than we did when we sold through the stores. But it's more important to me to know that every tube of paint that goes out the door is the highest quality we can make. And so it seems to be pricey, but I'll tell you what, you also don't want to compare it. If you compare it to just a standard tube of paint, our paint is a thicker, firmer paint. You can always thin it down. It goes farther. You can use it for wet on wet painting. You can use it for when you want thick paint, but you can also thin it with Magic Clear and it'll go farther. You know what? We have a master class that we have several classes that we teach now. And in our master class, I had 2 different students send me pictures where they painted all of the classes on all the level of the master classes, and painted like 55 paintings with one small tube of phthalo blue. Our paint goes a long ways, and it's because it's a great quality. That's why it's the price it is. It really should be pricier, actually. But we're trying to keep it affordable for everyone.
And
thank
I'd
you,
like,
Sandy.
Yeah, that's very kind. Thank you, Sandy,
Yeah,
for
thank
that
you so
super
much,
chat.
Sandy.
And we have another question here from Chris. Laurie, what are you using now instead of odorless thinner to clean the brushes?
Oh, we are using soap, water, and vegetable. And let me tell you guys the secret. It's a formula that Tom Anderson, our master artist, and you know what? In the future events, you're going to hear more about Tom Anderson. Tom is our master artist that's carrying on Bill's legacy. I want to first, before I tell you about the formula, I want to tell you, Tom Anderson is the only man I know that ever that I ever heard say Bill Alexander's name along with the great masters in the same sentence. Tom can't do a painting now without mentioning Bill. Bill was Tom's mentor, and Tom is carrying on that legacy. Anyway, Tom brought this formula to us. It is a solution that you make like in a gallon container. Take 2 parts, so that would be half a gallon, 2 parts vegetable oil, and then put a part dishwashing detergent, like a Dawn washing detergent, and then a little bit of water, maybe about 1/8 water, so you have room to shake it up. Shake it up really, really well, and then pour it into your container and use it over a grid like you would normally. But let me tell you, you only want to do that at the end of the day, because then you want the brushes to dry overnight. So you want to make sure you get all the water and all the solution out of it. And but while we're painting, and Bill would have loved this. I wish we would have thought of it when he was around. We use baby wipes. We clean the brushes with baby wipes, and it's also great for removing paint from the canvas. And but also with the baby wipes, you know, you want to leave a little bit of the color in the brush anyway, but it'll get it really clean. Or we'll dip it in Magic Clear, or we'll dip it just in vegetable oil and just clean it if we want to clean it thoroughly on a paper towel. So, you know, we just don't need to use thinner anymore. And when we paint, we don't have anything but a pleasant smell in our studio, because our Magic White now smells like lavender. So anyway, it's a great way to paint. I hope you'll join us in the things that we're doing now, because we're doing some amazing, people are learning how to paint beyond anything I've ever seen in my 35 years in a very short time.
Okay, Lori, this is a great one. Is there a book about Bill's life?
No, James, that's a really good question. There was, in fact, I don't know if you can see this. I happen to have this here next to me for inspiration. KOCE produced this book to go along with the documentary, but it is out of print. I know that we do have it in digital form in our membership. If you have our membership, you can read this book in there in a digital format. With this one may be reproduced again at some point down the road. But that's the only book about his life story that I know of. And this actually only goes up through 82 or 83. So maybe it's time to get another one on the market. Maybe we'll think about that.
Okay, we have a few more comments here. First, let's have this one from Marion Bradley. Can anyone still become a Bill Alexander certified teacher?
Marion, thanks for asking that question. You know, we certified, in fact, we talked about Bob Ross earlier. Bob Ross was one of our first certified instructors. We've certified hundreds and hundreds of teachers over the years. We're not doing that program right now. Again, we may do that in the future. We may reinstate that program. I will tell you that the masterclass, going through the masterclass is really a wonderful way to get on that path. And I know that we will probably, when we do it, if we do certification again, prerequisite for that will be our masterclass series. So we might, Marion, I can't give you a definite answer on that.
Okay, and Steve Guerra, I'm not sure, Steve, I apologize if I didn't pronounce your last name right. I don't see any of the larger brushes on the website either. Are they still available?
Steve, thanks for asking. You can find them. The only place you can find them are in some of the kits. And that's because we've got a shortage of them right now. I'm just going to be honest with you with the last few years, everything that's been happening, it's been much more difficult to get products and to keep the supply chain filled. And so we are having a little bit of a difficulty getting those brushes right now. So we only sell them in the kits that the special kits. So we aren't selling them individually. Once we get that figured out and we get a supplier for that, we will sell them individually again. Now, back in the day, I will tell you that Bill Alexander used hardware store brushes, but hardware store brushes have changed. They now put this little pocket to hold the paint in the center of the brush, and it's not the same thing. So it's a lot harder just to go find a hardware brush that will do what Bill liked to do. But I'm sorry that you can't get them individually right now. The 1-inch brushes are still available that way, but it's just that way right now because of our supply problem.
Okay. I got a few more here, Lori. Let's go with this one here from Missy Chowders. Are there any classes coming to Los Angeles?
Missy, I'm glad you asked that. I just saw that in the chat and I thought, I hope Gord asks that question. You know what? We aren't doing classes locally, like in different areas right now. We are doing some amazing classes online. We have several classes and we do it right through Zoom. So we have people that get together several times a week. We have Tom Anderson teaches classes, Buck Paulson teaches classes, and we just do it right from the comfort of your own home, all through Zoom. And it's just amazing what we're doing right now. The technology of today just makes it possible for us to get, we're not only teaching now in America and in Canada, we're teaching around the world. We have students from around the world that attend these classes. And so if you're interested in finding out more about what we're doing in the classes and things, send me an email, Laurie@alexanderart.com, Laurie @alexanderart.com. We'd love to have you join us, because we really are having a lot of fun. We're bringing it right into your own home. So you don't even have to leave home to be in classes with us.
Okay. I've got a few more. I've had a chance also to go back through the chat and share a few other things. Had a little difficulties in the beginning, but things got sorted out. So I wanted to share a few extras here, if that's okay, Laurie.
Okay.
Okay, so we have here Kelly Dawn Patterson. There should be a coordinated effort to organize a showing of all the private collectors of Bill Alexander works, and a video of it should be on this channel so the entire community can admire.
Well, Kelly, that would be wonderful if we could do that. However, the key word there is it's private collectors of Bill Alexander's work. And so, if it would be kind of neat to reach out to people and to let people know. But I'll tell you what, the collection that you just saw in today's program is about as complete as I know of any of them around. So yeah, it would be neat if we could do that. That would be really, really neat to be able to see his work. Something else that is going to be available in the fall is because I wish that there was an Alexander painting in everyone's home. I wish all of you could have them. We're going to actually be putting some on canvas, printing some on canvas, some of his nicer work that will be available for sale in the fall. So it'll be a little more affordable than an original would be. And the fact that there's just not a lot of originals that are up for sale right now. So it might be a way for you to be able to enjoy having it on your walls without, at this time when you can't get a hold of an original.
Okay. Here's an interesting one. What advice from Chris, what advice would you or Bill give up to an up and coming artist?
I would say never give up. No matter what, just never give up. Be willing to work hard. Be willing to put in the time. Be willing to want it more than a lot of things that will distract you. I would say, there are so many distractions in the world today that there's all kinds of things you could be doing with your time. Be disciplined. Set time aside. Make sure that you keep the fire and the dream alive. Do the hard things, even when it's not coming to you quickly. Do it anyway. And I would definitely recommend. I can't say enough how much I'd recommend that you get into our masterclass series taught by Tom Anderson, because Tom Anderson teaches you what Bill would have taught you in the studio, and he also teaches you not only what to do but why. We start our very first masterclass painting teaching you how to mix color with yellow, red, and blue. We don't use, Tom only uses, I think, eight colors of paint, 8 different colors. Everything's mixed with that, and we teach you that. But you can learn the basics. And here's why I say that is in 35 years, I've watched a lot of people, a lot of artists over the years. And I watched a lot of them continue to paint and continue to paint the same thing year after year after year, and not really make any changes, but just doing the same thing over and over again. What I've watched, we have one student in our class that started our masterclass series about a year ago. I think it was about a year ago. Maybe not even a year and a half, not even that long. And she's already in our Beyond Masterclass. We have a Beyond Masterclass series where Tom's teaching old master techniques. And they are painting in that series, in that class. We do a live class every week. And these projects that Tom's working on, sometimes there might be 21 hours of teaching. And he's teaching techniques and he's teaching you the whys and the hows. So, but back to your question, that would be the other thing I would say is find an artist that you want to paint like, that you can study with and learn everything you can from that artist, and then move on to another artist. If you only when you run out of everything you've learned from the person you want to paint like. But just make it a priority, stay disciplined, and don't let the busyness of the world interfere with your dream and your desire, because it will. Your time will get sucked away in other ways. Just stay determined. That's what Bill would say, and that's what I would say as well.
Okay, so we have a few more. We still have 211 people live watching, which is really amazing. Really love the answers that you're sharing with us all, Lori.
Thank you.
Okay, a few more here. I'm going to also just share a couple of comments, because I saw in the chat there's a lot of sentimental feeling from their experience in watching Bill. Comments like, I used to watch Bill paint every chance I got as a kid. I have a handwritten letter back from Bill and Marguerite. I wrote them after my brother passed away. So there's a lot of long-term connection there. And here's Michael Sullivan. I also says, I love my thick, dry, firm Alexander paints, never a stream of oil pouring from them.
Yeah.
And then
thank you. Gord,
yes.
I saw a question or another
Sure.
comment from Michael in the chat here that I'd like to bring up. He mentioned that in Bill's original shows, he only used 8 colors as well. And that is true. Bill used a handful of colors, and he mixed everything just like Tom did. That's where Tom learned it. Now, the other thing I want to tell you about on Bill's shows, we sold a kit that people bought that was called the Magic Foil Painting Kit. I saw on our Facebook page the other day that someone had one of the original ones from around 1987. That wasn't the original, but it was one of the early ones. And it was important that Bill used only the products that were in that kit, because people would order the kit and want to paint along with them. And if he was using additional colors or additional brushes or anything like that, it would be very confusing for the artist. And so, but that is what Bill used: a 1-inch brush, a 2.5-inch brush, a script liner, palette knife, and a fan brush. That was it.
Okay. Yeah, that was this question right here that you answered, Lori.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a couple more starred here because it seems to be something I've seen a few times mentioned. Bobby Ramos asked, is there a schematic on how to build an easel from Bill's style? Please excuse my spelling. It's the first day. So in other words, also, do you sell Bill's easel?
Yeah, I get that question a lot. You know what? We don't sell his easel. And I think you're thinking of his stand-up easel that he used on his show. I don't have a schematic for it. However, I do have a detailed part document that I could send to you. So if you want to send me an email, Lori@alexanderart.com, and in the subject line, just put Bill's easel. If you put that in there, I'll find that document and send it to you.
Okay, we have one from 008 Unbeliever. What size canvas do you recommend to students? Okay,
so Bill painted on, the smallest painting that I ever saw Bill paint on was a 1620. He painted on 1620, 1824, 24 by 36, and 24 by 48. Those were and he also 24 by 30. Those were the canvas sizes that Bill liked. Now, in our masterclass, we start people out on 12 by 16, and we really like that size to start with. And just because of our 2.5-inch brush problem, if you think about it, a 12 by 16 canvas, you don't need a 12.5-inch brush. I mean, a 2.5-inch brush for that size canvas. The 1-inch brush will work just fine. But we'd recommend, as you're starting out, 12 by 16. In our masterclass, the first series we start out with is on 12 by 16, and then we move into 1620, and then we move further up into larger sizes, 1824, 2436, 24 by 30. So to start out with, I would definitely start with like a 12 by 16.
Okay.
You know, can I just
Yeah.
say something, Gord?
Sure, Lori.
I would never say anything. I could never talk about anything I didn't believe in 100%. And I know I've mentioned the master class, and I told, I want to tell you how that, how we started that series and how Tom started working with us. Tom had done he was a certified instructor that also had a public access channel in California. And he had a channel for a long time, and he was talking to me on the phone, and he sent me, I was creating DVDs of the artists. It was a time when we were digitizing everything. And he sent me DVDs of some of his shows because I was going to sell some of his DVDs. And at the time I was editing Bill's shows, and I thought, well, I'll just put Tom's shows on and I'll just listen to it while I'm working on this other stuff. And I was so fascinated with Tom's shows that I just stopped what I was doing and I watched every DVD. And so we reached a point one time when a customer of ours came to me and said, you know, you have all of these shows on your channel, and you have all these shows, it was before YouTube, you have all these shows on your channel, but where do you start? Where do you start with Bill? What's the first one I should do? And I thought, gosh, we don't really have a path to teach people, to take people step by step by step. So I reached out to Tom and I said, Tom, could you put together a series that would, a series of classes that would help someone from the very, very beginning go, learn to paint Bill's style and learn to paint, just be able to learn to paint. And so he said, oh, you're probably thinking of my masterclass. So this masterclass he taught in a studio in California for 20 years. So he perfected that course long before he brought it to me. So I took that class from him through Skype. That tells you how long ago, through Skype. And I thought, this is it. After all these years and all of the teaching and all of the teachers and all of it that I saw, I could see that people could learn to paint faster through this course. And that's why we produce this course, and that's why we sell it. And that's why you hear me talking about it, is because 100% I'm a believer that if you want to really, really learn to paint, that is the path to do it.
Okay. So we're almost done here, Lori.
Okay.
You're doing an amazing job. So many great questions and more interesting things shared by some people. Bill is the reason I'm painting since the 70s. Wow, that's from Angelus Joys. And Bobby Ramos, I used to love when Bill used to make a mistake and say, see, I showed you how not to do it.
I love that. And that's something we didn't bring out in the show, but the thing is, Bill wanted people to know everything. He didn't want to hide anything. And that's why even when he made a mistake, that he would have had the ability just to get out of that mistake without anyone knowing it. But he wanted to make sure that we didn't miss a thing. And he knew we would make that mistake and we'd get in that trouble too. And he wanted us to know how to get out of it.
And we have one last share. At 54, I'm finally started painting. Thanks for giving me the almighty confidence, Bill. That's beautiful.
Yeah, that's great.
So, Lori, I think we're at that time where maybe we should come to a close. And did you want to share anything else special? I'm still blown away. There's 220 people concurrent still watching.
Yeah, I'm looking at the comments now, and I see Jerry the painter said, thank you, Lori. Dawn has been amazing to me. And I just want to tell you that Dawn is my right hand, and she is amazing. I agree with you, Jerry. She takes care of, she's the one that will really get the answers for you. I think that, Jerry just said that. Thank you so much. I just am so grateful that you guys are all here, and it's amazing that so many people showed up live in it. And you know what? It's a testimony of Bill and of the kind of man he was, and what he's brought into the world, the love and the life that he's brought into the world. And I think of kind of a ripple of the sea, and I'm reminded of the story about a man was walking on the beach and he saw this little boy throwing starfish into the ocean. And there were thousands of starfish on the beach. And this kid was throwing these in and throwing them in. And a man came up and said, "You can't possibly make a difference to all of these starfish." And he said, he threw one into the ocean and he said, "I made a difference to that one." And it makes me think of the ripple of how we can all of you that are out here either already painting, wanting to learn how to paint, how you guys can help carry on Bill's dream. And you are doing it. I know I've seen some names on here that are people that are teaching and have been teaching for years that have continued Bill's legacy. And I just want to thank everyone that's doing that. And I think we should just really, really create a new movement that because Bill believed, like I started out, Bill believed that the world would be a better place. He truly believed that if people would start painting, that was the answer to all of the world wars. That was the answer to any of the fighting among people. He felt like if people were painting, it would change their heart. And so I believe that too. And so let's carry on for Bill. Let's carry it on, and let's keep teaching people how to paint, and let's keep changing the world. Not just teach people how to paint. That sounds like, oh, I'm going to learn to sew, or I'm going to learn to whatever. You can bring so much light in whatever talent that you develop. There's so many talents to develop, but let's change the world by teaching people to see, and to teach people to be able to appreciate the world in the way that Bill Alexander did. I thank you for coming today. Bye-bye.